We have a first once again in these interviews. It is going to be our first international guest. Our boy Ben out from New Zealand. He's Canadian but lives in New Zealand. So, for all of the people wondering, hey, can I do this outside of the States? Because I know we get a lot of questions asking if the books are in some other countries, Europe, the Pacific. Yes, OddsJam keeps on adding more books, making it possible for everybody to access our software. Ben has been using OddsJam for about 2 years, over 2 years, when it was different. He is having a great month, 3K this month so far in January. Here's a story for the people wondering how it works if you live outside of the US.
OddsJam actually absolutely works internationally. Don't shy away from it. If you're in Australia, if you're in New Zealand, you're Canada, Europe, it's going to work. You've got tons of books to work with. Jump in and do it. I'm a high school math teacher, right? So
Nice.
I feel real funny because I feel like I went to university and did like computer science and mathematics. So I feel like there's a connection there with, and I've always done sports betting. So I feel that connect. My best days have been like 200. And then all of a sudden in December, it was like I had a couple days 300, a couple 500, a couple over 700. I'm like, wow, this is just so incredible. And then you're making that again the next month. You're not talking about a whole year to do that. So it's happening so much faster than it would in most other investing sort of ideas.
I would like to add that Ben is a math teacher, but luckily you don't need to understand all the crazy concepts because OddsJam does all of that for you. But it is going to be very helpful for you guys to understand what no vig is, what the fair value is, understanding all of that when starting off. But that shouldn't take you long. Anyways, here's the interview. There you are. What's up, Ben? It said Matt Ben. How's it going, man? You're in Australia, right?
New Zealand, yeah.
New Zealand. Close, but
Close.
not there. New Zealand, man. I think you're the first guest outside of the US. Yeah,
Nice. I
that's
think so. I've just scrolled back through some of the podcasts just to see how it all fits together and how it goes. And just, yeah, it seems like everyone's around the States.
yeah. So are you from the States or you are from New Zealand?
Originally, I'm a Canadian. I've been over here in New
Canadian.
Zealand for about 20 years now.
Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
How is it living over there? I was just out there. I was in Asia. Well, Southeast Asia. So I was close-ish.
Yeah, I saw some of those pics you posted and some of those videos you took. It looks like you had an amazing time. I live in
Yeah.
New Zealand's wonderful, mate. It's relaxed. It's the weather where I live is absolutely fantastic. Tons of I'm in Nelson, and one of the things we're known for is this. We either like the first or second, usually every year for the number of sunshine hours we get. So it's just
Wow.
absolutely beautiful here.
That's amazing, man. Now I'm really curious because I don't even how does sports betting work out there? I just went right into it, but now I'm like really piqued.
New
Like, how do
Zealand
you
is a
do it?
sports crazy country, really. They love their
Yeah.
sports. They love betting on it. They, here it's called the TAB. It's sort of that's sort of the off-track betting. They recently TAB actually partnered with Entain, which does things like I think they do stuff like BWin and stuff and Ladbrokes. So I had a shift account that I had in Australia over to here, which was fine. But yeah, I mean, everyone's always talking about rugby here, of course, rugby and
Yeah.
cricket and that sort of stuff. So it's I would say it's more popular here than most people think. Just about
Yeah.
everyone I seem to know seems to have an account at the TAB, so they can put on their little bets on, the rugby
Yeah.
games for the weekend or what's happening at the Australian Open, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of betting syndicates. I've been part of those a couple of times at work, which is always great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know Australia is massive with sports betting, so I'm guessing New Zealand is as well.
Oh, Australia is absolutely massive. Yeah, I wish there more would come to New Zealand. There's a few things in Australia that you can't really get access to. Like I can't get access to all of the books that they've got over there.
Yeah.
PointsBet would be the biggest one that they've got that we don't have
Wow.
access to it here in New Zealand. But
Yeah.
still working my way through. I'm not shy. I just email customer support at any book that I think, hey, I'd like to maybe try your service. If I don't see New Zealand listed in the registration page, it just doesn't matter. You just email and contact support and find out if they'll actually let you in. And lo and behold, oftentimes they will.
Oh, so you've had some success like getting into books that aren't even available just from emails.
Yeah, looks like they're not available.
Amazing.
It's, New Zealand's not always a registration on the registration page. It's like, well, does that mean we can't play, or does that mean you just usually don't worry about that? But
Yeah. Oh. So are the books there in OddsJam or the odds provider in some books that are kind of mirrored, or how do you use OddsJam out in New Zealand?
so essentially the same. You just sign up for the books that you've got. I mean, it's still the biggest by far for me because I don't have access to the big four that are in the States.
Yeah.
I don't have access to FanDuel, DraftKings, and MGM and Caesars, which I know are massive, massive books. I mean, when you start to become a
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, it's a big market.
Yeah.
But I've been with Bet365 for a long time, and they're by far one of my best books. Ladbrokes I had for a long time, switched over to TAB here in New Zealand because of that change with Entain taking over. But yeah, it's massive, and I'm like, one of the things that always surprises me with OddsJam is everyone thinks you've got to have 10 books, you've got to have 8 books, 20 books. You don't.
Yeah.
I'm churning it through with 4, maybe 5 on the outside occasion.
Okay.
Been
What are
limited
those?
at so
Yeah.
many different places, but you've got Bet365, you've got William Hill, you've got uh, the TAB or Ladbrokes, you've got a number of just general international books that OddsJam caters for. Stake was one that recently limited me. If there's any whales out there, by the way, that can get me access, get my limits restricted, lifted at Stake, I'd love it. Was loving Stake for a long time.
They're so
Stake was a
easy.
funny one too, right? Because they were crypto, right? So
Yeah.
even though for the first little while when I was at Stake, I was losing, but my balance kept increasing because the value of crypto kept going up. And then all
Also,
of a sudden I start winning. So then not only are you winning, but crypto keeps going up. So
oh,
it's like a
you
double
put it in
double win.
Bitcoin. You deposited in Bitcoin and left it in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then you got
Yeah.
that bull run from the last couple months because it went
Yeah, which was
crazy.
great. So what I mean, like I cashed it out the other day.
Nice.
A bit funny because like I contacted customer support and they won't say that you're limited. They say, oh, our odds provider might limit you. It's like, well, aren't you don't you know when that's happening?
Yeah,
So
don't you know your
it's like,
customer?
forget it. I'll take the money and
Yeah,
put it someplace else, put it to good use.
nice. Yeah, I
It's one of
think
the things for me, it's one of the things that's a bit strange with sports betting is the cash flow, because I just leave the money in the accounts until I have to, until they limit me and I need to cash it out just to
yeah,
not draw attention to yourself and this sort of stuff, right? So
yeah,
for me though, it's a funny thing to cash out because that actually gives me cash flow again to actually look at other books and see what else is out there. Because otherwise, I just play with what I've got until they limit me.
yeah. I think William Hill is the same as Caesars, if I'm not mistaken. They have the same odds, I
Yeah, could
think.
do, but yeah, made a
Yeah,
ton there. Was averaging over close to 7% returns there for a while, and then of course, see what happens. Yep, after I think I had three days in a row where I absolutely crushed it there, and then yeah,
yeah,
limit. It's like, all right, well, close that one. On to the next one.
yeah, yeah. It happens. So I know you've had a pretty. I don't know how long we've been like the first time you messaged me or something. It was probably like a year ago or something, or a couple months back. How has the year's journey been? How I think this
It's
month
been
you're killing
great.
it, right?
The This is the one that really stands out to me, and I know a lot of people like. I'm a high school math teacher, right? So
Nice.
I feel real funny because I feel like
Hmm.
I went to university and did like computer science and mathematics. So I feel like there's a connection there and I've always done sports betting. So I feel that connection with Alex. And I've been a member of
Yeah.
OddsJam well before I started using it daily, back when Alex would literally be the only one replying to your emails, which is great. But then I know they brought in Randall, and it's like Randall was like me. He was like the high school math teacher that, knew how the math worked and got into this sort of stuff. So it's been great. But one of the things that I know people can't really think, people mostly think linearly. So when you talk about compound growth, it's really hard to imagine. And for me, that's finally kicked in. The really compound growth has kicked in. So the last couple of months, all of a sudden, I've been comparing my results, and I post about it on the blog. I compare it to last year, and like I've doubled my turnover per month or tripled it. And then, of course, that means the profits have done the same. So, last month was the first time I'd had a goal for over a year to hit 1K in profits for a month, which sounds like peanuts compared to what I know a lot of the fellas are making. But at the same time, it's like, well, let's set a goal and let's work towards it. and finally hit it in December. Hit it before the end of 2024. I was really happy with that, and not only hit it, like crushed it. So a couple of great, almost $4,000 for the month. It was like boom. Now all of a sudden I can put more bets down, and now all of a sudden I can put bigger bets down, and then of course the compounding effect of that is unbelievable. Then come into January and things keep rolling. I'm thinking, oh, will I have a bit of a pullback or not? No, it's continuing to roll. A couple of days ago, I hit $1,000 in profit for a day for the first time ever. It's like, that's insane. I've given a lot of that back in the last couple of days. A bit of a harsh couple of days of the pullback, but as you well know, Juan, for EV betting, you've got to be looking at your progress month to month. And since I started documenting and doing sort of the daily betting, I had a whole month off earlier this year, middle of last year when I went back to Canada to visit family for a month. So it was really weird to not sports bet for a month. But I've been with daily betting with OddsJam for 16, 17 months now. I've had 1 month that has had a negative return. Everything else, all green months, month after month after month. So if you're measuring your progress in anything less than a month at a time, I think you're being a bit foolish. Stick with it. Have I had the downswings? Absolutely. There was a time, I think it was in December 2023, I think, where the start of the month looked great. And then I hit like a 2-week stretch where I had like 2 or 3 winning days of the 14, and it just looked like it sucked. And that continued into the first part of January the year after. But then it bounces back. The variance evens out. You hit that winning streak. You hit that, you hit those, that LeBron hits an extra basket that gets you that win. He hits the extra rebound that gets you that win. It's just amazing how all that goes together. Hey, man, you're on mute.
There we go. Should be good,
There we
right?
are. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple things there. So like you're a math teacher, right? So compounding in theory, right? You understand it in theory, but it doesn't really strike you until you participate in it with your actual money, right?
Yeah.
Because you can just obviously do a simple compound equation. This is what, right? Like teaching your students.
Yeah.
But like once
Yeah.
it comes to your life, then you understand what Albert Einstein was saying, right?
That's right. Eighth wonder of the world, man.
Exactly. And it's like, there it is. Because yeah, that's happened to me too. Like when I first started, it was like $10 bet slips, $5, 20.
Yeah.
And then one day I was doing $600 per bet, like months after.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like nothing is changing. It's the same concept. And then that's when that emotional detachment is very important, right? Because you think like, well, I'm wagering all of this amount, like in one night, I'm putting down 5K, whatever, 10K. But like ultimately, no different than when you're wagering $500, $1,000 a night with a smaller bankroll, right?
That's right. The math is all the same. It's just that you're making this bet. It's got a 3% edge, a 5% edge.
Yeah.
You expect, so if you make $100 bet, you're gonna make $3 to $5 on average. But $500, you're gonna make 5 times, and it just explodes. And it's, I think people mostly know about like compounding probably from things like interest investing and stuff like that. And I think that's on such a longer time frame than it is in the sports betting world. Because in the sports betting world, if your bank rolls say 3K and you can turn that over in a month, well, then you've made that 3%, that 5% in a month. And then you're making that again the next month. You're not talking about a whole year to do that. So it's happening so much faster than it would in most other investing sort of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also the importance of like new users that are coming in and they're doing plus EV betting, and they're not really educating themselves as to what they're betting. They might just be like blindly betting, which still works. But then when variance comes in and then the losing streak comes in, only the people that understand like what they're doing will stick through it. But the majority, and this is something that we've looked at, will just kind of just stop and just say this sucks, like negative reviews, like OddsJam is a scam, like this doesn't work. Like, oh, if it's a plus EV bet, then why does it lose? And it's like, you're not really understanding what you're doing then. A plus EV bet doesn't mean you're gonna bet. It just means that
you don't win every bet.
Yeah.
If you want to win every bet, And if you want to make really good money doing that, sign up for the OddsJam and sign up for OddsJam to get and do ARBs. That's, there's green
That's it.
screen bet. How many guys do on
So
Twitter
many.
and in the OddsJam sort of community that do exclusively ARBs because they don't want to lose money?
Exactly.
And it's
Exactly.
wonderful. So when you switch over to EV, and I personally find EV easier, there's a few things about that because I'm working in multiple currencies, right? I'm working in US dollars as much as I can, but then some of my accounts are in Australian dollars, and now, of course, I've got accounts in New Zealand dollars. So arbitrage for that, because OddsJam doesn't have that feature yet for international, for multiple currencies, and I get it. It's not a big demand for them at the moment,
Yeah.
but so I'm not going to bet. I can't do an ARB that has
Yeah.
Pinnacle against, say, the local TAB when I'm betting US dollars versus Australia, New Zealand dollars, because then I'm going to have to do the conversion. And the conversion at the moment is shit, but you can still do it, but it's
Yeah.
just that extra little time and it just sort of isn't worth it really.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
EV, I don't worry about currency conversion. I just, bet what it says. And it's like, this account happens to be in Australian dollars, fine. This one's in New Zealand dollars, fine. This one's in US dollars, fine. And I talk about that on the blog all the time for internationals is, be mindful of that. Be mindful of that for like middles as well, right? Because it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Anytime you're putting a bet on both sides of something, if you're in different currencies, you've got to take that into account. Whereas with EV, you don't worry about it. You just make the bet and off you go. And I
Yeah.
also find it's faster, right? Because I think when you're doing an ARB, you got to place two bets for every entry in OddsJam, everything that comes up with the filter. Whereas with EV, it's just one done, one done, one done.
Yeah.
So, part of my process has really changed in the last couple of months is that I usually do check to see if it's a reasonable EV bet against Pinnacle or against like DraftKings to make sure, because I usually do prop bets. I mean, NBA prop bets are by far the biggest bets, most bets I make. Basketball is
Yeah.
really big here in New Zealand, and it's really big in Australia. NBA's done a wonderful job at making it international. It also
Nice.
means that I don't have to get up like 5 a.m. on a Monday or 4 a.m. on a Monday to try and do
Yeah.
NFL bets because of a day, because of the time difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so you've got to think that through about how it all sort of comes together.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that you were mentioning about ARBs with the multi currencies also sometimes the currency goes up and down, and if you're arbing and then it went down and then decide that you actually needed
That's
could
right.
have, or it could be the other way. It could be beneficial. So yeah,
Yeah.
EV betting for that is honestly really great. Yeah. So now I'm interested in how you adapt this to your life. Now saying that you sometimes have to wake up at 5 in the morning. So you're doing this part time, right? I'm guessing because you're full time high school
Yeah.
math teacher.
Full time. Yeah. So full time, and we've got two little girls here that are under
Yeah.
both 4 and under. So
Oh,
there's a lot.
congrats.
So
How do you adapt? Yeah.
I
What's that schedule looking like? When do you bet?
so the
You
schedule's a bit
live.
weird, and of course I'm in New Zealand, so the time zone's very different.
What are you at right
Like
now?
right
It's like
now we're doing this.
3 a.m.
Yeah, it's 3:30. You're 3:30 in the afternoon, right? On
Yeah.
Thursday at the moment, thereabouts. And I'm like 9:30 Friday morning is when we started this.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
everything's just off, so far off, it's crazy. So my usual process, there's a few parts to it, is I'll try and make bets. If I'm up late enough, up to about 10 o'clock at night, I'll make bets at night. Just sort of see what's there, see what's coming through, and I'll make some bets at night. And then usually I'm up early in the morning. I'm usually up around quarter after 5:30 anyway, just to get the day started. And I'll spend, maybe a half hour if I can find a half hour in there to put some bets in. So at the moment, I know my volume is way up because I've got that extra time during the day. So like after we finish here, it'll be, 10:30, and I'll go and make my bets for the day, and then just, go off and do some other stuff.
It kind of works
Uh,
actually in your favor now that I think about it. Like hit it at night before going to
yeah,
bed, and then when you wake up, and then that's it. Like
yeah,
that's when like the
yeah.
peak hours are for you then.
A little bit. It's works. I make it work, and that's just sort of part of the balance. Would I love to be able to take some time during the day on my lunch break or something like that and get some more bets in? Yeah, and I have done that on occasion. I just find that as a teacher that sometimes you don't always get those breaks. You've got other meetings and other stuff scheduled in the day. And
Yeah.
I mean, anyone else will have it in the same, in all kinds of jobs you'd have is you can't just take that break in the day to sit down. You can't just fire up a laptop and just, go off and do your own thing for 20 minutes or half an hour, get all these bets down just before the games start, which by far usually has way more bets to make then.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of what people don't understand around OddsJam is you don't have to be putting in, some of these fellas that are making, tens of thousands a month. One of the fellas I was looking at the other day made a couple $100,000 last year
Who?
or more, right? Like,
I know a couple of
it's like,
those.
oh, yeah, crazy, right? But you look at
It's
what
the
they're doing.
bankroll.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
the same thing. More volume.
they're doing the same thing. They've got the platinum plan. They're doing EV betting, but they're sitting down before game time to get all the, pre-game bets in. And then they're sitting through game time, watching the games, probably in the background. But then they've got, dual monitor set up, all that sort of stuff. It looks really fancy. It looks great. Elf's, wonderful character for that sort of stuff. He live streams it all the time, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was
But
doing that last year. Yeah. Well, live streaming, but he's still live arbing. He's up about 50K this month, actually.
Right. Like,
and he has a 9 to 5.
How much time is he putting?
He has a 9 to 5.
He's putting that time in. He's doing
every
the live.
Night.
He's got the platinum plan. So, that's where he's at. So, and I mean, so something else, I guess, that people maybe don't understand about OddsJam is just how helpful OddsJam is as a whole. Like, even before you sign up, you can schedule a call with them to go through, and they'll show you how it looks. And after you've been with them for a while, you can schedule a call to show how it looks. So I've messaged him a number of times thinking, okay, I'm starting to get limited with the books I've got, but my bankroll maybe wasn't big enough. Should I consider the platinum plan or not? And it's like, it's tricky because I wouldn't be able to sit down and do the live betting. So there's a bit of balance there. But it's like, well, maybe I could start to squeeze in an hour or two on a weekend, on a Sunday when all the Saturday games are being played. I can maybe do that in the middle of the day. That might be something that, works long term, but it doesn't matter really, because you can start just with promos and just convert those. I mean, my God, promos. If I had OddsJam when I was first starting this, because when I first started with OddsJam, the interface was white.
Yep.
So if people haven't had that experience, it's crazy. They didn't have default filters. They didn't have any of that sort of stuff. So it was very different. And Alex was just getting this stuff off the ground.
Yep.
And I told him my situation. I said, look, I'm in New Zealand. I don't have access to all these books. How about a discount? And sure enough, huge discount, right? For the first year I was with OddsJam, I think I paid $5 US a month because that's how generous Alex was and just wanted to get right. How crazy is that? They've since reviewed that and they've upped my price, but that enabled me just to play and look. And at the time, I was using a different service which focused way more on soccer, which is fine. A little more variance there because the odds are quite a bit higher, and that service was working pretty well for me. But as I saw OddsJam start to come along, it's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. And then this other service I was using, a couple of times they had a few huge glitches for a while, and they were down for like a week. And I'm like, honestly, fellas, if you're down for like a week and this isn't working, this is shit. And even the compensation for that was, they give you a discount for the next month or something.
Like
but
the
it's
software,
like, well,
right, was down.
Yeah. Software was down. It's just that I don't know if they lost their odds feed or they had to change providers or something, but it's like, it's not good. And they didn't have a whole lot. They didn't do anything live, which was fine because I wasn't doing anything live anyway. They didn't have as much. They didn't recommend doing prop bets and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so I was starting to find that it was very limited. So outside of soccer season, and soccer's huge throughout the world, right? Like tons of bets to have on soccer. I do wish OddsJam would push that a bit more. I think that's an untapped market as they expand a bit internationally.
So many markets they don't have that are still like untouched. Like all the offshore basketball stuff. Like they do some Korean stuff, Chinese basketball.
Yeah.
There's like every country has their own leagues.
That's
for
right.
Almost every sport.
Yeah. But you got to look at the upsides of the liquidity of that, right? So soccer for like European, EPL and stuff like that, there's huge liquidity. So there's enough there to make make huge markets and make huge money out of that. And I did with this other service. I made good money over there. It really started me off. And I signed up for OddsJam about the same time as this other service. And then I just watched OddsJam grow and grow and grow. And, this other service was quite expensive in comparison to OddsJam and still is. So eventually it's like, forget it. I'll close this account down because I'm not getting a whole lot of bets in here and here and here. And you don't have all the books. And, OddsJam got to a point where they were mature enough in the software and had all kinds of bets, tons of books. And it's like, right. And then I made the decision. It's like, right, let's start to do some daily EV betting. And sure enough, took off with OddsJam. And as I said, I started daily betting probably back in August 2023. And since then, it's just been, I did 10 months straight of profit, right?
Nice.
Before I had one losing month. And that one losing month, I wasn't even able to bet the whole month because we took off a bit early for our holiday. So,
Yeah.
a couple of days, maybe a couple extra days, maybe would have made a difference. And then since getting back in August 2024, August, boom, back in the green. September green, October green. November was really funny because I made the decision. So I did the calculations. Like, okay, my current rate of return is about 3.5%.
That's high.
Which is nice. It is high. It's gone higher since then because I've had some positive variance. So I know it'll settle back down around there.
Yeah, anything above 3 is amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. But I looked at it's like, okay, well, let's run the math. What's my turnover have to be to hit at least $1,000 in a month? It's like, well, it's got to be around 30 grand. So it's like, fine, okay, I've got to be making this many bets a day around this average. Done. So in November 2023, I did. First time I'd gone over about 20K, I think, in turnover. And
nice.
Lo and behold, it was shit. I had a 1.5% return. Still positive month, though.
Yeah.
You keep at the process. What happens in December? December's ridiculous. It's something like an 8.5% return for the month.
Isn't that nuts how the math works itself out? Yeah. I mean, you're a math teacher, but it's still magical to me where you're just like, the math works. It's like you're aligning with these universal laws. I want to get all
That's right. Reversion to the mean. It's called, right? That everything sort of fluctuates. If you know the expected value, you're going to have fluctuations above and below the mean, the average return. And lo and behold, it always comes back. So, when I hit that 1K a couple days ago in profit for the day, I knew I'd have a couple of rough days after that. Did it worry me?
Oh.
No, because if you look at last month, I'm still up like 3 grand.
Yeah.
I still have, 4.5% return in that time. Will that slide down a little bit? Yeah.
Do you
for the record, I do like this. I do like the soft landing after I've had a really big day rather than the hard landing. But
yeah, there's soft landings when those massive days hit. Sometimes like they keep going and you think you're Zeus or something.
You do. December, like I had a couple of days that were over 7. Like all of a sudden, my best days had been like 200, and then all of a sudden in December, it was like I had a couple of days 300, a couple 500, a couple over 700. I'm like, wow, this is just so incredible. And then, of course, I gave some of that back towards the end. I had a day where I lost 800 in the day.
Nice. Well,
what do you do the next day? You do the same thing. You go and you place all those same bets as you would.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I want to repeat is for the new people listening here and that are going to do plus EV betting is just that's just expected. And your first week could be terrible and you could be like, what is this? This doesn't work. This is a scam. But you just got to keep going because it could have gone the other way and you wouldn't have been thinking that, making the same bets. Go ahead.
So like yesterday I lost over $500, right? The difference between being minus 500 for the day and say up 150 for the day would have literally been an extra rebound here, one less point there from that bet, and then it all would have changed.
That's it.
It all would have changed. But I've been talking to some fellas on it is the magic of it, right? And yeah, sure, it's frustrating as hell some days, but
sometimes you win by that too, by that extra hook, that last rebound, that last basket when they were down 100 and somebody randomly scored that you needed to score.
Yeah. A game goes to overtime. You've got all these over bets, and it's like, oh, we're a bit short here on everything, and all of a sudden it goes to overtime. What happens? Yeah. You cash 3 extra bets today. Done. Yeah. And I've been there's a fellow I've been talking to on Twitter. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's new to EV.
Yeah.
And he said that. He said this first 3 days were shit. And he's sort of in the first week of he's on a free trial, doing the first few days, not winning. And I showed him some of my results. That December that I had where there was like a 2-week stint where it was just shit. I said, you're going to have days like that, but stick with it, trust the process, and you'll get there. It might take you a couple of weeks. You might have, as I said, 3 days where you win over 2 weeks, but then the next 2 weeks might be, you might have 3 losing days over the next 2 weeks, and it all works out. Because for like friends, like November and December are really good examples. In November, I had equal number of winning days and losing days. But of course, the winning days usually are bigger than the amount you lose, right? So it turned out to be a green month. Great. In December, when I was on such a hot streak, I had almost 2 to 1, 2 green days for every red day. And when that happens, you can't help but get so far ahead. It's unbelievable.
Do you go over this to your students? Are you allowed to talk about like plus EV
Um,
betting, what no vig means, what fair value is? Like can you talk about that?
it's I don't bring it up specifically. I mean, we do talk about all the concepts because I teach statistics and calculus, whatever teaches of physics and stuff like that. So this stuff is absolutely relevant in a lot of those situations. What I
Probability
do find
theory.
is when we have some older students, if I don't shy away from any conversation. So if they're starting to talk about betting, and I had that with the students I had last year, is that because our school year runs from the start of February to the end of December, right? Because Southern Hemisphere. Um, so some students were starting to do some soccer betting and stuff like that, and talking about how that
Yeah.
was playing out, and they were trying to, they were just trying to handicap their own games and this sort of stuff. And I, talk to them a little bit about it to see if they're interested in learning a bit more. It's a bit of a dicey situation, but as I say, if they bring it up first, or if it's something that naturally sort of starts to occur, that's when I start to have more of those conversations about what's the expected value, and hey, let's talk some gambling sense here, and what does it actually mean, and how does it all play together?
How you
Because some of
actually
them have
win.
made, huge money trying to handicap games, and then all of a sudden, then they get a bit cocky and yeah, because they're 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, right? Um, and then they'll have a rough streak and lose it all, right? So they'll got like
Yeah.
$300 and think they're on top of the world, and then they'll lose it all in a week. Right?
Yeah. What about family? Well, they know you're a math teacher. They must know what you're like that what you're doing is right. But when you mention you're gambling for some extra income, do they give you like a wait what? Or do they trust that you know what you're
It's
doing because you're a math teacher?
They trust me because I know what I'm doing. So I've talked with my dad about it a couple times, and he was pretty impressed with the detail, and because he knows that I wouldn't do anything that's really foolish. Before I did start with it, I talked to my wife about it because I said, "Hey, listen, like I stumbled across OddsJam by I was I've been searching for things like white papers on with like research papers on how to set up a system to do it." And I've looked at that, and I even there was a course once that I did about setting up MLB, like home run and hit predictions and that sort of stuff. But one of the things I think people underestimate is the amount of work that has to go into
Yep.
getting that up and running and maintained. And you're constantly updating the code. You've got to tie in the games for the day. You've got to tie in the player list. There's so much that goes into that. And OddsJam just makes it easy. I just pull up the screen and go make the bets. And then
Yeah.
I, stumbled across that. But then before I started, and I looked at it and done that, and that's how I stumbled across on Medium.com. I came across some articles, and one of them had mentioned someone had mentioned OddsJam. So it's like, right, let's actually go and have a look. And as I said, this was way back when I had the white interface instead of the dark interface, this sort of stuff. And I talked it over with my wife a little bit because it's like, well, I'm gonna be putting some money in here. She probably wants to know where that money went. And she just said, "All right, like I trust you. You don't make good business decisions. You make good financial decisions. So great." And when I talked to her the other day about how things had gone in December and January, she actually seemed pretty surprised. And I said, if we convert all this money back to New Zealand dollars at the moment, this is how much it would be. And she was like, "Wow." Like she knew I was doing all right. She didn't know I was doing quite that all right.
That's good, man. I love that. I love that
Mm.
for you. Yeah, I have similar stories when I had like massive months. It was like last year I made like 70 grand or something in 2 months. And I was
Mm.
like, I showed my parents, I was like, "Yo, look, remember that gambling thing?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's got to be part of it though. That I try and explain to people is it's yeah, at the core of it, it's gambling, and you might not win. I've took sometime last year. I probably had like I don't know 5,000 bets in at the time, so I took that and ran some simulations to show what it would look like. So you take the odds that you've got and then you take the closing line odds and you make the closing line odds. You make that random numbers so that you get the right distribution. So if it should win 60% of the time, you say fine, 1 to 6 wins, and then everything else loses. And you run that simulation, and it's amazing how much variation there is in that.
Yeah.
But so you could still it's really over say a few hundred bets, you might lose.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 bets, your chances of losing and ending up with less than $1,000 goes down. If you start to talk 5,000 bets, it's almost impossible. And then when you get to 10,000 bets, the chances of you being having lost money is almost zero, if not zero itself.
Yeah.
So yes, it's betting, but because you've constantly got an edge, it's actually has that's why it's EV betting, right? It actually has a positive expected value. You expect to make money.
Yeah, that's why it's called expected value and not right now value, because it comes later.
Yeah.
I think we got 5 minutes here. And I want to close this off with if there's anything you want to tell all the new users, stuff you wish you would have known when you first started, or in words of encouragement for the people that might be going to variance. I don't know, anything you want to say to the people listening from the outside.
Few things. One, OddsJam actually absolutely works internationally. Don't shy away from it. If you're in Australia, if you're in New Zealand, you're Canada, Europe, it's going to work. You've got tons of books to work with. Jump in, do it.
Yeah.
Use that 7-day trial, figure it out. One of the biggest things I do before I add a new book is I actually add them in my feed so I can start to see how many bets I get. And if they're coming up with, very few bets, I don't worry about that book for now. I might come back to it later. So, you're going to go and find that some books give way more, have way more bets to make than others. Make use of that. The one I've been doing a lot lately in terms of my process is I've turned it on so that when I make a bet, there's a little button save, and then underneath it's got save and hide. Use save and hide. It's really quick, makes it easy. In that first week, also learn the process, learn how to navigate, the books so you can get through quicker. When I bring up the feed, I'll go through one book at a time and just hit every bet that they've got so I can get through it as quick as you can.
You're doing
and then I go to the next.
Sorry to interrupt you. Any above percentage filter, like what EV?
I just use the default OddsJam filters, and I mean I'll go down as low as 1%. I usually stick above 2%, but that's just where it's at. I do find a lot are sort of in that 3 to 5% range, just with the books I've got. It'll vary by book.
Great.
Another one that I think people often overmiss is, I love basketball and whatnot, but by no means do I know all the teams, do I know all the players. That doesn't matter. I know the math, and OddsJam knows the math, so I just make the bets.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that's it. You heard it right there.
Trust that compound growth, mate. Trust the compound growth.
Yeah, once you experience it, you'll internalize it. It'll transform into something that you just understand, that you actually live, and you become a bank, and you understand how white credit cards make so much money.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
I think that's perfect. Thank you guys for listening. I'll leave Twitter's down here. I'll leave a 7-day trial here that will help out Ben if anybody wants to join with the link. Go ahead.
Mate.
If you have any questions, I'm sure you could go ahead and DM him. I'll leave his Twitter handle in the beginning of the video. When he pops up, you'll see it there.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.
Cheers.